All right, everybody, welcome back. I am Matt Bimonte. I am joined by Sam and Kamerow. We are doing some coverage of the NRG Series MTGO Invitational. As you can see here, David Lam and Eldrazi Tron is in against Blair Splett on Jund, which is what we're going to be watching tonight. There's also John P. Whetstone on Red White Burn versus Justin Brickman playing humans on that side of the bracket. Kind of how these two got here. I believe it was the first match we did with Brad. David Lam against Connor Mullally, and David's Eldrazi Tron deck took down the Urza deck pretty convincingly. Not really a surprise. Eldrazi Tron, Chalice of the Void, really strong card.
Yeah, I covered Blair versus Bimonte. Ben had a really interesting green-white Hate Bearers, Death and Taxes style deck, but unfortunately, Jund is just going to beat up decks like that on a pound-for-pound card power level. And that's what the story of the match. Even with cards like Veil of Summer, Jund was able to punch through.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Jund being able to, point and click and pick apart decks like that is probably not what Ben was looking forward to seeing in the tournament. So at any rate, we have David versus Blair tonight. And let's talk a little bit about David Lam here. And he plays a bunch on our series, see him in tons of stuff. He also plays a fair amount of MTGO. Eldrazi Tron, definitely not surprised to see him play today.
No, yeah, David, he's a 27-year-old, originally from California, but he's finishing up a PhD here in the Midwest, so he has plenty of time to play on the Nerd Rage series. He top-aided a Grand Prix back before they were Magic Fests in 2018 in Minneapolis. And he also top-aided a Legacy PTQ. So there's a lot of formats that this guy feels really comfortable in. We're going to find out tonight if Modern is one of them.
Yeah, I'm interested to see this matchup in particular. Eldrazi Tron versus Jund it's kind of becoming like two pillars of the format. Mm-hmm. Jund is a little bit better against the smaller creatures with things like Lightning Bolt, Call Against Command. So it'll be interesting to see how it squares up against, Thought-Knot Seer, Reality Smasher, and things like that.
Right. And what's interesting, or I should say unique about this list that David's brought here is that you still see 4 copies of Karn the Great Creator. So even without Mycosynth Lattice, this is just getting up fair tutor targets for the Tron deck.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I know when we did the original match, Ugin the Ineffable was just a powerhouse against the Teamer Urza deck. And I assume Ugin the Ineffable is just basically unbeatable against Jund. It's always a blocker. They don't have things to trample over. And when you kill their things, they just get a new card, which is totally fine for what they're trying to do.
I think something that's going to be interesting to see in this matchup is how powerful is Chalice of the Void. Because if Chalice of the Void is able to strip 1 or 2 cards proactively by, coming down at the right converted mana cost for that, David's going to pull really far ahead. Otherwise, the Jund deck is going to be trying to one-for-one these really awkward creatures like Reality Smasher and Matter Reshaper.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would assume that this is kind of a great situation for David to find himself in.
Yeah, the way that I can remember is, the Tron decks, the traditional Tron with Karn Liberated and big things like that against Jund. Jund just got manhandled by that previously. I don't know how this one goes particularly. I mentioned that Jund has a lot of Lightning Bolt effects and small ways to kill creatures, and then that's just kind of nonsense against these creatures.
Yeah, well, before we write him off, let's learn a little bit more about Blair Splett.
All right, so you see Blair here on our screen, 21 student from Ingleside, Illinois, 2 NRG Series top 8s. 2018, he was in the championship as well, top 8 of that, and he was the Season 1 points leader. So played a lot of our tournaments and did fairly well at most of them.
Yeah, I've definitely seen Blair. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off.
It's okay. I was confused. 100 copies of Sanctuary Cat. Do you know the text on that card?
I think it's a 1/2 from Avacyn Restored. It's either that or a 1/1 with lifelink, I believe. Maybe Shadows over Innistrad, but
all right.
No.
Well, maybe we'll make Max do some work and edit that one and put it into the post production.
We can have a graphic overhead to show how wrong I was.
Oh man, so he's a sparkling water enthusiast and would like to try Escargot.
Yeah, I said this when we were covering his last match. Escargot, there's no real rush. I wasn't particularly bowled over by my experience with it.
All right. Well, let's see Blair's deck here and see what his weapon of choice is. So, again, those Paracol against commands, a bunch of lightning bolts. The 2 Croaks, Titan of Death's Hunger, is a card people were kind of on the fence about. I mean, 2 mana for a card like this. Both of these Titans have been very good. Kroxa and obviously Uro is more of the standout. That one was
Right.
Everyone's like, okay, this card's busted. I think Kroxa is pretty good though.
I've played Kroxa a lot in decks that have much lower card quality than Jund, so kind of Mardu synergy-based decks. And it's really pushed those decks up another power level because it's a 6/6, and it frequently does 9 damage when it attacks. And I'm interested to see if Kroxa can get into play and actually stare down some of those Reality Smashers and Thought-Knot Seers.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I didn't really think about that. It just as a 2 of that plus Tarmogoyf, sometimes they outscale the Eldrazi. So Blair's definitely got a fighting chance in this one. And
Right.
Liliana the Veil even is very good against anything that's basically not reality. Matter Reshaper.
Right, it'll be an interesting question to see if Blair's able to line up his cards. I would call him disadvantaged, but he's definitely got a good shot at this one,
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's kick it off here and see how this one goes. So game number 1 going to start off here in just a second. And you can see our players are imitating paper play. They have started without the go-ahead from our director. So that's nice. We're on turn 3 here, it looks like, for David Lam playing a powerful turn 3 Matter Reshaper.
Well, then you can see David actually would have had turn 3 Tron. It looks like he led on Expedition Map, but in Assassin's Trophy was able to break that up.
Okay. All right, so Blair has Baron Moore in his deck. I totally missed that when we were going through the
Blair's got a nice deck. I think the real heartbreak for him here is that he doesn't have red and green mana available to start buying back lands with that Ren in 6.
For sure. All right, well, there's a huge Tarmogoyf. I mean, Tarmogoyf's already a 5/6 thanks to the Expedition Map that's in the
that's
graveyard.
pretty cool. Not so cool, Baron Moore entering the battlefield tapped.
Yeah. So there is there's a Karn the Great Creator, Expedition Map. I mean, those are 2 pieces that are pretty tough for the Jund deck to get into the graveyard.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Thought-Knot's here. I would imagine it's going to take one of these Fatal Pushes, just start getting through the cards that matter here out of the Jund deck's hand.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead
it goes for the Planeswalker.
All right. So it takes Ren. And yeah, again, the Tarmogoyf is just a brick wall here. Man, Fetch Land was a really good draw there for these Fatal Push to be turned on, and I think Blair is in pretty good shape.
Yeah, what's interesting is that with Blast Zone in play, that kind of covers Tarmogoyf and Ren in 6. It'll take a turn or two, but I wouldn't be too concerned about a pair of 2-drops if I were David Lam here.
Yeah. Yeah, so Blair going to go ahead and fetch. She's gonna cast.
This is such a nice play. This is a true pro Magic player strat here. Because see, now you know what you want to fetch for it. Because look at, maybe you need another black source. You drew another black spell. You don't need another black source, but...
So it looks like Blair's going to go grab Blood Crypt out here. All colors are set to go. So
I don't want to harp over something that's not the biggest deal in the world. But again, very nice sequencing there from Blair Splett.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So what Simon's referencing is that Verdant Catacombs was on the stack and then was able to Fatal Push thanks to that Revolt trigger on that Thought-Knot Seer. And then, Blair, wow. So Blair takes a Chalice of the Void, and there's a Karn Liberated in David Lam's hand, which is pretty scary, to be honest with you.
Right. And now this is the worst situation. Do you want to kill this Matter Reshaper? Because is the top card the 3rd Tron land?
Right. So he's going to just go ahead and attack. I'd be surprised if this thing isn't just a speed bump.
I think I would have actually been inclined to either Lightning Bolt or get an untapped land and Fatal Push there, just because you're trying to end the game as quickly as possible. And I think it's unlikely you're going to get more than 6 damage out of those cards.
Yeah. All right. So Ugin the Ineffable actually was the pickup from that. And there's another Urza's Tower in play for David Lam.
Right.
He's getting very close to these Planeswalkers.
And the worst thing about Ugin is that its static ability... it's going to make the Karn castable the next turn. So Ugin the Ineffable feels a little more like Ugin the Inevitable right now.
There we go. I knew it was coming.
Thank you. That's, they put it in the card name just so I could do it.
All right, so David's going to charge up the Blast Zone, take a hit from Tarmogoyf down to, I believe, to 14. Yep. So, I mean, at this point, David's totally fine just to hang out. All he needs is a little bit of time.
Right, and this is what you were talking about. Traditionally, Tron as the big mana deck is favored against Jund because Jund eventually just gets outscaled. But here, I mean, this is Eldrazi Tron, the smaller Tron deck, but it's just going to start casting 6-drop and then 7-drop. And I mean, this game is pretty far out of reach already, it feels like.
Yeah, so here comes... Oh, wow. Went backwards on that Ugin.
Oh, it makes sense.
So went backwards.
Yeah, I think you want to make sure you deal with the card just in case, there's some dead removal hanging out in Blair's hand.
All right.
But boy, Blair, that Baron Morin play is just kind of mocking him now.
Yeah, that is true.
Ugh. All right, let's see what this is. Oh, okay. Nothing too scary.
Yeah, not too bad.
Certainly scarier than a mountain, though.
Yeah, a lot of lands in play here for Blair. Each side has a lot of lands, but the utility lands there for David Lam are going to help. Blast Zone, protecting from Tarmogoyf, something like that. Tech Edge can cut off, one of the green sources.
Well, right. Even if Blair were to draw something like a Raging Ravine,
Yeah.
the Tech Edge could answer that. But this Karn is going to start making short work, I think, of Blair's, I guess I would just say board state, maybe total material to win the game. What does Karn do? It just wins, right?
Yeah. All right, here's Tarmogoyf, which is already, several answers for that. There's the, Karn can go backwards. There's the Blast Zone already on board.
Yeah.
And I think, this one started off really good for Blair. And
did. What's funny is that I think, honestly, we can go back to that turn 2 where he had to play the Tarmogoyf instead of playing, or turn 3 where he had to play Tarmogoyf instead of playing Wrenn and 6.
Yeah.
And since then, he hasn't necessarily been behind in the game, but he flooded out on cards, and having Wrenn and 6 in play as opposed to getting it nabbed by that Thought-Knot Seer would have really changed the texture of the game.
Yeah, totally. All right, Matter Reshaper continuing the beatdowns here.
Yeah. And, I think it's fine for David to just start proactively using this Tech Edge, but I think I would have wanted to save it just in case you see something like a Raging Ravine later from Blair's side.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And Blair's not able to cast 2 cards a turn until, something like Bloodbraid Elf happens.
Right. I mean, I don't know what better you could hope for from your Bloodbraid, but I just don't know what this is going to do here.
Yeah, pretty tough. So he's going to use the Diabolic Edict effect, and Matter Reshaper going to bite the dust.
Right. It's interesting that Liliana's -2 is not Liliana's Edict. Oh, you know what? I bet you David's putting that one in his hand. He's not going to put that into play.
Yeah, there's a Walking Ballista there, and this is the worst part. If you're the Jund player, you attack Karn, and it goes down to 11 loyalty.
Oh, yeah. Now, I have definitely lost a lot of Magic games after my opponent resolved Karn Liberated. And for me, frequently, it's how much do I like this person is how many more turns I'll play once Karn gets to 2 digits,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Here
all right.
comes a Reality Smasher. Okay.
This guy's pretty good.
Yeah, Reality Smasher, not bad. You just attack Blair here and put him to 3?
I think you probably just attack Blair and put him to 3. And then you play this 1/1 Ballista, and you say, how good is your next draw step?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, what could it be? It could be, Bloodbraid into Kolagon's command, and that wouldn't really do it here.
It doesn't do anything.
Ugh. Basic Forest, not fun when you have Kroxa.
Yeah, not the best. All right, so let's take a look at the sideboards here and see if that can help Blair out. So we'll start off on David Lam's side. He's got these 2 Relic of Progenitus, 2 Spatial Contortion, and then the Karn packages below there, as you can see. So.
That's not just the Karn package. That's the Karn Premium subscription. I mean, that is a lot of cards for Karn.
Yeah, it is. So we don't have what David did here, but what do you think, if anything, he's bringing in? You think Relic is pretty good against Tarmogoyf, right?
Yeah, I think Relic's pretty good. And honestly, I could see boarding in something like the Wormcoil engine, just as this is a high enough value thing to put in. I think you want to keep Mystic Forge in the sideboard because you want to be able to tutor for that, as I think that's probably the biggest KO card you can get.
Okay. And then taking a peek over here at Blair's side, this one's pretty simple. You see those 3 Pillage right there? Those are definitely in for this matchup. And then I mentioned in the pregame that Lightning Bolt's kind of nonsense. So
Yeah.
just a straight 3-for-3 swap, pillage for Lightning Bolt.
Now, one thing I'd be interested in if I were a player, this is going to sound kind of weird, but I really like Chameleon Colossus against Eldrazi Tron. So it's a 4/4 for 4, just trades heads up with a Thought Knot Seer. But if it's ever in play with untapped mana, it is bigger than everything they put into play. It also can't get dismembered because it has pro black. So it's not an intuitive card, but in a matchup that's so much about board presence, I think it can actually really mess up combat for your opponent.
That is interesting. I guess I didn't really think about Chameleon Colossus. That's a good one. And as you mentioned, yeah, it is a lot about, they have big creatures. Can you stick them? What's the biggest one on the board? And,
right.
Blair actually got to a point where the board was relatively clear for him until that Smusher came down really late in the game. But you need a way to pressure the Planeswalkers, too, and Chameleon Colossus certainly can do that.
Sometimes Reality Smasher is a reality check. You think you're at parity in a board state, and then your opponent was actually winning the whole time.
Yeah, that's true. Relic Progenitus, I mentioned, is good against Tarmogoyf. It's also pretty decent against Wrenn and 6 as well.
Yeah. Also going to mess up Kroxa. I don't know if that card's going to find its way into play, but Relic of Progenitus will make it harder.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm interested to see where this one goes. It kind of was like the tried and true battles where, the Jund deck starts off pretty decent, and then Tron's like, okay, well, here's this big fat card I just ripped off the top. Stick it in play. Can you beat it? What's the answer?
It's like, do you remember when you were playing Kitchen Table Magic and you would say to your friend, all right, cut to a random card. Whichever card has the higher CMC, that's who's going first.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like Tron is just playing that game, but they win every time they win the cut,
Yeah. I used to play Hythonia the Cruel in my deck.
See, you were smart. You were planning for this situation.
Exactly. All right, so let's kick off game number 2 here. Blair is going to be on the play. This hand doesn't look particularly good. In a normal game, sure, but not against Tron. This one, Basic Forest again. Very nice. So.
Basic Forest, not looking great. This one looks pretty nice, though. These Croxus aren't great, but they're going to do something,
Yeah, even on 5 cards, one of the Croxus is an easy one to send back, and probably that Forest, to be honest. So
yeah, I like that. I could see if you're feeling a little chancy sending back the Swamp and keeping both Croxus just so that you have more spells to cast, but I think you want to make sure you cast Pillage on time.
Yeah. All right, well, he's going to curve out into 2/3, which is not the worst.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting trivia question for you. Do you know when Croxa makes your opponent lose life?
I don't. Is it I don't know.
It's if they discard a card. If they do not discard a non-land card. So if they discard a non-land, they're fine. But if they discard a land, or if they don't discard, it does 3 to them. So there you go, 3 damage.
3 damage for a basic waste, and the bad news. Oh, maybe that's not bad news.
No, I would say it's the worst news, honestly.
I was gonna say it's absolutely horrible news. So, Blair is facing down Tron next turn.
I would play the Liliana. No, I don't even know if you can play Liliana here. What are you supposed to do?
I think you're supposed to light a land on fire and hope that's good enough.
Right. That's true. There's always a chance that David doesn't draw the second land again.
Yeah.
Although...
David's on 3 cards also.
Yeah. I like this play a lot, though, because honestly, it's not like you're going to lose to the big Tron effect next turn, and now you're forcing David to just make decisions with fewer resources.
That's fair. I'm sure David just has natural Tron in hand.
Oh, so this is going to be Expedition Map for, Tectonic Edge or whatever?
I'm like 100% certain. I've played against Tron several times.
Yeah. Whenever you see Jund play against Tron or another big mana deck, you really understand why Jund players think they're the good guy.
That's true.
Excuse me.
So you see?
Yeah.
Pops the map and gets the 3rd piece of Tron here.
Yeah, and again, so this is what I was talking about. I think this was safe to pass the turn here because you knew that there wasn't going to be a big payoff from Tron because the tower was already in play.
Okay. He's going to go ahead and pillage the piece that was mapped for.
Right, the classic counter Tron play. You always get the one that they search for last.
Yep. David's on 3 cards here. How aggressive is it to tick up Liliana and get rid of your Tarmogoyf?
I think you got to do it. I think you have to get towards that ultimate as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm with you. And especially with the... Oh, now there's Relic's gone, though.
Yeah,
I'll say with the Relic in play, it certainly is appealing.
Right, but it's going to be an 0-1 next turn. I think you're in a situation where you just kind of have to hope the game goes right, and I believe that starts with you resolving the Liliana ultimate. We'll see, though. Sure. It's not the be-all, end-all. Right now, it would just be a Stone Rain if it resolved.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like Liliana just does not get activated for the turn there.
Here comes Blast Zone. Jeez.
The utility lands are so good in this deck, man. That Blast Zone is a huge upgrade.
Right. It's always interesting which ones they have, and this is the really tough situation with Liliana, where it's like if you had ticked up last turn, you'd be punished because now you would have to tick up again for no value.
Yeah, it's a squeeze.
But it's nice to be able to resolve Tarmogoyf. I do think you have to go up with Liliana at some point, though, because I think you need to start forcing your opponent to take action against that permanent.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it also puts a creature in the graveyard, which is not for nothing. At least puts a card in there.
Yeah, you're going to at least have a 2/3 Tarmogoyf this turn.
Yeah, Expedition Map cracked. Going to go grab the mine again, reassemble Tron. And yeah, I mean, if David has something like, you mentioned Wormcoil Engine might come in. If he has something like that, any of those powerful Planeswalkers, we're not even playing the same game anymore.
Honestly, walking Ballista for 4 is going to buy enough time to deal with the Tarmogoyf via Blast Zone. I think we're just running into a situation where Blair wasn't able to pressure David's mana development meaningfully enough, so now all of David's draws are live. Here's the first one.
Yeah, and Karn comes in, going to plus pretty safely here. I mean, Tarmogoyf is not even close to taking down Karn.
No. Oh, and just to mock him, there's the 4th land.
Extra slap in the face.
Yeah.
David going to go down to 2 cards with Liliana here. Could possibly put another point of power into Tarmogoyf, but Karn's at 10 loyalty, and I mean, it just doesn't really matter. This Blast Zone's going to start ticking up.
Right. And you can, if you're in Blair's seat, you can construct the sequence of draws that would put the board at parity, right? Okay, so Blast Zone takes care of Tarmogoyf. Liliana maybe minuses on some creatures. I draw Maelstrom Pulse for, there goes the Liliana. I draw Maelstrom Pulse for Karn. But, just every turn, there are these giant eldritch fiends coming to aid David here, and it's just so tough to get back in it.
Yeah, and this one looks pretty helpless here. Karn's on 7 loyalty. The Tarmogoyf is smaller than Thought-Knot's here.
Yeah, I mean, well, at least you get to send in Raging Ravine here. Maybe you'll get to draw a card out of it. The heartbreak would be Raging Ravine getting dismembered. Something like that would be, I would cut, I would concede the game there if I were Blair, but he's probably made of sterner stuff than I am.
Let's see. So Raging Ravine going to come at Karn Liberated again.
Yeah. If you're David, I think it's actually safe to block this with your Thought Knot, because even though you're trading down in terms of cards, you are dealing with a somewhat problematic permanent.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And,
I'll say this for David. I've seen him play a lot of different Magic over the years, but I've never seen him play kind of risky or thoughtless Magic. He always is playing a pretty intelligent, conservative line.
Yeah, so it's going to draw Pillage, which feels really bad here.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, it used to be Fulminator Mage, but then they printed Veil of Summer, so now it can't be a black card. And, Pillage gets exiled to the card.
That's fantastic. And the Blast Zone is firmly holding back Tarmogoyf, and David Lam has 1 card left. Looks like he's going to deploy it. Oh, just going to go ahead and Blast Zone.
Yeah, why not?
Signals maybe another one.
Okay, well, hey, there you go. You can get back the Tarmogoyf.
I guess you can. That is a legal play.
I think we're more likely to see 2 damage to Karn, you discard, because getting back the Tarmogoyf is just going to put it in exile.
Yeah. It is not great for Blair. This matchup pretty much went the way I've seen most of these. The Karn decks, the Tron decks, whatever they are, big mana versus Jund, and this one,
right?
Even after getting pillaged, David Lam's like, okay, whatever, reload, just play another thing.
Well, and you can see, I think, kind of what the issue with the matchup is that mulliganing is so deadly for Blair because he's, for the first time for the Jund deck, losing on the card quality level. you know?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of 2s and 10s basically in the Eldrazi Tron deck, and the Jund deck is just pure 5s. And, I think the key for Jund usually is if they can curve out and go Thoughtseize, Tarmogoyf, Liliana. If they can just disrupt from the jump and then get the fastest clock they can get going. Because you can see every turn, it's just so much harder for them to win a fair fight.
Are we going to see a Karn restart?
No, probably not. Well, we'll just see this one. See, and this is the thing. Back in the day, you used to just say, okay, the game's over. Now you got to finesse it a little.
Nice. That's awesome.
Oh.
So Karn, the great creator, going to go get Sundering Titan.
Oh, my God.
That's going to... he's going for a perfect game here, and I'm a big fan of that.
The only downside is there's no basic land type on that Blackleaf Glyphs.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But Karn Liberator will take care of that in no time.
Yeah, I love that. This is one of my oldest heartbreaks playing Magic is my neighbor Daniel explaining to me that he could choose my breeding pool and my basic forest for a Sundering Titan.
Yeah, that's devastating stuff. All right, well, David Lam going to pick up a pretty convincing set here over Blair Splett's Jund deck. Not really surprised, man. I don't know if you are, but went the way I thought.
No, Blair's a cool guy, and he's certainly capable of pulling off the upset, but it would have been an upset if Jund had won that one.
Yeah, I agree. Man, this Eldrazi Tron deck, it gets a lot of flack because of Matter Reshaper and things like that, but it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, who you shouldn't be giving any flack to? Tron Lands and Reality Smasher. Those are some good Magic cards.
Yeah, not the worst. Yeah, pair it up with Chalice of the Void and shutting down some decks, and it's definitely been better than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
It saw some popularity. It's like a year ago, maybe at this point, and I was like, man, this deck just looks like a complete pile. But it does stuff, and it gets pretty good results. So David Lam going to punch his ticket here to our top 4.
Yeah, making it all the way to the final 4. Eldrazi Tron's getting it on.
Yeah, big fan. All right, well, big thanks to our sponsor, KMC here. If you want to check them out on Facebook.com/KMC Sleeves. You can also check out their content on Instagram at KMC_Sleeves_USA. You can get some perfect fits. You can get some hyper mats, some hyper mat minis, whatever suits your style.
Hyper mats. Are you talking about yourself or are you talking about card sleeves?
Maybe I should work out a deal with them to see if they could put my face on there and they would be hyper mats they would certainly be hyper mats.
Those would be good for the intimidation factor.
Yeah, my own sleeve. If you're looking for some sweet cards, maybe some Chalice of the Voids, that card's got to be $1 million at this point, right?
At least.
So, maybe $1 million. But if you got $1 million to spend, you get your $1,200 check in the mail, you want to buy some singles at nerdagegaming.com, feel free. Man, History of Benalia. I remember when that card was legal in Standard, or when it was played in Standard.
I've played that card in more formats than I'm comfortable admitting on the stream.
Yeah, I believe I've called several of those matches. Believe it or not.
One of them it was the right call. One of them it was a good deck decision.
It was pretty good stuff. That's a powerful card, by the way. Yeah. Anyway, if you want some singles, make sure nerdagegaming.com. Man, I'm really looking forward to the next set of matches as well. Obviously, David Lam has really shown his stuff against a couple different decks in the format. But Red White Burn is a deck I feel like just gets no play, so it's cool to see John Whetstone playing it.
Well, it's also interesting, you said classic matchup of Modern, Jund versus Tron. Burn versus Humans is another kind of new classic of Modern, and to be honest, I think it's going to come down to Brickman's sideboarding here. Does he have those 4 Auriok champions we see sometimes? Does he have cards like Knight of Autumn? Or is he just hoping to dodge? In which case, too bad.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see the way the rest of our NRG Series MTGO Invitational shakes out. David Lam, again, punching his ticket to the top 4. So Simon and I are going to get out of here for the night. We will see everyone for the next ones.
Have a great one.